Necromancer is one of the best classes in all of Diablo Immortal, so let's take a minute to break down this class's top 10 best legendary items. Number 10, the Skullveil helmet. Necromancer mages are one of, if not probably, the best summon in the entire game. With the variety of variations available for the Necromancer's mage, it's not only a versatile summon, but also a staple of Necromancer damage per second. This helmet will increase the amount of time your mages are available, overall increasing your damage output, as it also decreases the downtime between your mage summons available. Number 9, Proximal Fear legs. The Wraith form for the Necromancer is its only maneuverability skill. Proximal Fear pants are going to add a total loss of control to your enemies when touched while in this form. This will also allow Necromancers to be able to trigger the Chip of Stone Flesh gem and allows for Bottled Hope procs as well, as Wraith form does count as a buff. This also allows Vithu and Blessed Pebble, for instance, to increase the buff duration. This item, layered with other items, will give the Necromancer multiple forms of CC in PvP matches and are a staple annoying thing to deal with. Number 8, Exhumant's Backbone. This chest piece is another staple of Necro PvP CC, and when paired with Proximal Fear, will give you multiple ways of CCing somebody over and over again. And the Exhumant's Backbone owner is going to be able to immediately create pillars that'll knock up targets underneath it. This is an instantaneous form of CC, and when you combine it with these other items, for instance, like the Proximal Fear legs we were talking about earlier, this makes a very frustrating experience for the people you are PvPing against. You can knock somebody up, CC them with the Fear, then knock them up again, as the cooldown period, the diminishing returns on that Exhumant Backbone's knockup is actually fairly low. This is a top-tier PvP item for the Necromancer. Number 7, Drifter's Fair Shield. So this legendary item is very interesting. It changes your Bone Spirit from a channel to an instant cast that creates this auto-targeting, heat-seeking skull to pursue your enemies. Because it's instantaneous and it deals damage just by passing through, it's fairly reliable PvP and safe PvP damage. You can combine this with the next item on this list to make this a really big problem in PvP. Number 6, Communal Rib. So the bone spirits, including the skulls we were just talking about from the Drifter's Fair Shield, can now cause total loss of control with a Fear proc. This is a 20% chance when damage is applied from this spell, and every time you deal that damage, you have a chance of fearing them, basically. And it's hilarious because it works with those flying bone skulls. So if you have the Drifter's Fair Shield and Communal Rib, you can instantaneously cast multiple skulls that will fly around hitting everybody, which has a chance to automatically trigger a total loss of control with Fear. And there's nothing anyone can really do about it because it's not targetable. It's not an enemy they can kill or anything. It's just a spell that's floating around the map. Number 5, Guided by Maggots. This will allow your Dark Curse to now buff your minions within the Dark Curse when you casted it. It will give an attack speed as well as a movement speed bonus. This attack speed bonus is a staple of Necromancer folk summon PvE burst damage. So if you summon multiple mages, use your command skeleton attack, for instance, your activate, you use the burst of the Dark Curse, Guided by Maggots, use them all at the same time. This will create burst window opportunities, and if you do it during when a Crusader on your team is Holy Banner, you can really get probably the most insane DPS numbers in the game at the moment, in my personal opinion. This is when I've had my highest damage, is always using Guided by Maggots, plus a full PvE summon build with some of the other PvE items we're going to mention here shortly, and this is a absolute staple of summon build PvE damage. It won't do anything in PvP, but in PvE, it's absolutely top tier. Number 4, Desolatoria. The Desolatoria weapon will allow you to create your golem as a molten golem instead of a standard golem. This removes the stun from the golem, which is important, but it allows him to continually have a fire aura around him, continuing to burn damage. He's a real low skill cap. All you have to do is throw him into a bunch of minions and have him burn those people around him, and it will continue to apply damage. And for that reason, plus the fact that the continual damage is going to be a higher amount of damage than if you just had a normal golem anyway, he's a very reliable type of golem that most people end up using. He's another staple for PvE Necromancer summon-related builds, and is especially brain dead if you're using him in things like overwood farming, etc., where you just want to walk around in a circle and farm with them. He's very good there as well. So Desolatoria is going to be a number 4. Number 3, the Rotspur shoulders. So these ones are interesting because they're going to take your corpse explosion damage from just a one-time corpse explosion instead to create a poison-like gas field around the corpse, which is going to do continual damage. This is a staple of any 6-piece Grace the Flagellant set and is one of the only types of damage that is actually increased by increasing your damage, for instance. Not all of increasing your damage goes to summons, but increasing all of your damage does increase your corpse explosion damage, for instance. It's also one of the only other fairly viable non-summon based PvE items in the game. Most of your PvE damage will come from summons, but it is one of the best continual damage type of build legendary items and is the only one that makes Corpse Explosion not apply a one-time explosion build, giving Corpse Explosion some more viability in things like challenge rifts, even a little bit of overworld farming, but not as much in the overworld farming. It's more of a challenge rift slash dungeon type of scenario where you have larger packs of more difficult mobs. That's really where the Rotspur is going to start to shine, in my personal opinion. Very fun build as well, and is a fairly different one than some of the other ones on this list. Number 2 is a defensive item called Parting Gifts. It's a chest plate. What it's going to do is give a team-wide buff that gives you 5 immunity pieces around you for your bone armor. So effectively what happens is every time any amount of damage is applied to you, whether it's 1 damage or 1 million damage, it will remove one of those 5 pieces of immunity. And this is for your entire party. So if you have big raid bosses that have like a one-shot boss mechanic, this completely removes that entire mechanic and allows everyone just to stand in place and continue face row DPSing. This will increase your damage as a team significantly. It also helps you in challenge rifts and can be a kind of a get out of jail free card if you're getting stuck or you're taking damage. It's one of the only ways to be able to really survive hard hitting moves and pushing forward. It also gives you easy mode in things like dungeons. For some bosses that maybe hit pretty hard, you can just Parting Gifts chest and everyone can just brain dead DPS their way down, not have to avoid anything. It really is quite nice, high utility, high value, and easy to use. Number 1 is Synod's Anointing. So in my opinion, this is the best legendary item in my game. I do believe that mages are the best PvE source of damage for necromancers. And what this is going to do is give you an additional stack of legendary mages which you can drop, which actually does 2 different things. One is the obvious one, which now you can drop 2 mages, which is going to increase your burst damage, especially when we have things like on this list we're talking about Guided by Maggots, where you drop 2 mages, then you can buff them. However, it also does one other thing, which allows you to drop only 1 mage at a time. And while you have only 1 mage dropped, the other one that you just dropped is still, that you didn't drop, is still staying in your inventory, but the one you did drop is in cooldown. So you can actually start the timer of having your mages constantly regenerating if you're just always dropping 1 mage. You can always still have that timer going, which means you can drop 1 mage and then instantly drop 2 mages, meaning you can have 3 mages up, which would otherwise be completely impossible, allowing for an even larger burst window opportunity. I think Synod's Anointing is one of the best legendaries for PvE in all of the Necromancer, especially if we compare it with things like you can get the Grim Reaper offhand, etc. That will really change the mages in even stronger versions. But I digress. I think for now, I would safely say that Synod's Anointing is my favorite Necromancer legendary. So what's your favorite Necromancer legendary? How did you feel about this list? And what do you think is the number 1 best Necromancer legendary in the game? Leave it in a comment and I'll heart it if I agree. I love you all. Thanks for watching. Consider liking and subscribing to this channel, and I'll see you on the next video.